Welcome, YouTube, to the first ever episode of Talk is Sheep. My name is Alfredo Mancuso. I'm your co-host. This...
Alexander Soto from Sheepey Race, your main host.
He had one rule that we established beforehand. I said, don't look away from the mic. The first thing he does, what's up, guys?
Oh, so it's always like this.
Nah, you can look at the camera, but just keep your mouth this way. Don't point that way, because otherwise we got to do all this other crazy mumbo jumbo.
I get it. It's kind of cool, man. We've been working on this for months, right? It's like...
Well, no. For starters, we got this done in 2 days. Everything, including ordering everything. This took about a week to get here, but the hard part is getting it all dialed in and then getting you away from this chaos around us to sit down for 45 minutes to 1 hour. That's all I want.
Which took about a month and a half.
Correct.
Yeah.
But, okay, obviously the comments will be able to tell you that it sounds very nice, right? It's a professional sound. Everything looks clean. We even had to get this table wrapped because you didn't like the countertop to be a certain color, so we got that.
Yeah, I like things to match. As you know, I'm really weird about things being symmetrical. Things got to match. You just want things out of place, right? So
is that OCD?
I can't really say it's OCD because then my house is a mess.
Selective OCD.
Selective OCD. Yeah.
I like it.
The shop's always got to be the way I want it. So.
Yeah. So like we said, this is the inaugural episode. I think we're gonna try and kind of get your guys' gauge as to what exactly you guys are into. Obviously we have it set up for 2 right now, but we can take it up to 4 people. The only thing about those is people just start talking over each other. That's the only reason I don't like 4. But if there's cool people around, we can always have them on. So this is just to get our foot into the door and then announce that we're doing the official podcast.
Yeah, and one thing I think we should mention is this will probably, the character and the dynamic of it will change within time, right? I mean, we have a lot of cool ideas to talk about, but I think right now with everything we have going on, our brains are everywhere. I'm not able to just
agreed. We just finished a $200,000 plus giveaway on Friday, and today's only Wednesday, and we're still catching up with emails and orders and stuff. You have, I don't even know how many builds you're working on, how many things you got going on. So maybe that's a good starting point. Just tell us a little bit about yourself, not your full history, but just a little condensed version of and how we ended up here today, this whole relationship and everything else.
Right. So for everyone that doesn't know about Alfredo and I, well, should I start with how I started, or you want me to tell them?
Yeah, just a brief synopsis. Obviously, whether it's the Honda world or just how you got into the exotic world, whatever you feel in the 1 hour that we kind of have a time limit today.
You know, how Sheepy even became a thing as far as a sort of a brand was in probably mid-2000s. A friend named Aaron Bonk. He was an editor for Source Interlink, which owns Honda Tuning, Super Street, Turbo Smart Magazine, etc. All the big magazines. And he said, hey, the name Sheepy, we should make you your own Facebook. And he actually designed that.
Me and Alonzo were wondering that the other day, who designed the sheep.
He designed it. He made the Facebook account, and he kind of ran. He's like, maybe we could go somewhere with this and try to, build a brand. And I'm like, all right, cool. As some time kind of went by, a couple months, maybe 6 months, a year, he goes yo, here's full access. I'm just really busy. Just do what you got to do. So I just kind of continued doing, right? Showing my cars, my Honda builds, etc. And the brand really started in the mid 2000s with the Honda stuff, right? I'm sure a lot of people know, if you follow us or watching this, you probably know our history of how we started with building Hondas out of the garage, started making turbo kits for Hondas out of a 1,000 square foot shop, taking big risks, which I'm sure we'll get episodes about that, about how, the business risks and what we've done. But it was kind of a big snowball effect. It happened very fast. And essentially about 4 years, this has all turned into what it has.
You mean in the last 4 years?
The last 4 years.
The most exponential growth, I suppose.
I would say the last 2.
Yeah.
The last 2 was just stupid crazy, right? But the last 4 years ago, I moved to Marietta where, the growth started going. But the last 2, it's really gone off. I think when we brought on Alonzo to kind of focus on creating an image of the brand, it's when it just really took on. Because I don't have that creativity like you do or Alonzo do. My thing is making fast cars, right? And I have a vision with cars, but to create a brand, it takes more than just an individual like me to build fast cars. There's tons of shops around the world that build fast cars. What's different from us to them? We've created a brand to it, right? And here we are now where we've, Alfredo came on about a year and a half ago. His brother is Johnny Man Cobra, which... Yeah, we'll get into that later.
He'll be here Friday. Maybe we should have him on a podcast.
We should.
I think he would kill it.
Oh,
Obviously,
yeah.
his boss will probably kill him, but
He's still our friend. It's not like he's gonna come here.
and my brother.
Yeah. So, Johnny was a tech here for for about a year and a half. Johnny's still a really good friend of mine, like one of my brothers, essentially. I met his brother, which is now Alfredo, through him, was just phenomenal with brand and marketing. And he had an idea about a year and a half ago. And I said, go ahead, give it a shot. And here we are. The Sheepey Brand, just to kind of, I'm very transparent as far as everything I do. He is my business partner in Sheepey Brand. Something like that, there's no way I have enough time or hours in the day to create and to provide for you people the cool shit that we rock every day. Actually, this is Johnny's
I made that too, though.
Yeah,
but.
this is Johnny's shirt. But and now we have so many stories as far as like our upbringing, his upbringings, all our clients' upbringings, a lot of things that we could teach you guys. My DMs are always flooded with people about like, you're inspiring, you do this, and it kind of, not in a rude way, it goes in one ear out the other. I'm just a normal dude, right? So I was like, you know what, let's do a podcast and just like talk about some shit, and answer people's questions and be a part of people more than just providing a service or product, right? So,
I think the coolest part of today versus maybe 10, 15 years ago is like the biggest brands in the world, they were not touchable. And nowadays with social media, with having buildings, with putting yourself out there, people can come and meet us. People can really feel like we're not that much different from them. So I think that's the really cool thing about the unification of the internet, where it allows you to be like, you know what, if I really work hard, and I literally watch this guy's story, maybe one day I'll build a brand like him, and one day I'll meet him and go and tell him like, hey man, you inspired me. And I think that's one of the cooler aspects of everything. For those of you guys that don't know, my background is I'm a professional BMX rider. I started building brands about 15 years ago as more of like a passion project, not really to get rich off of it or anything like that. But then when I saw that if you do a good job of mixing what is your passion, what you're good at, and conveying that message across the branding, people resonate with that. And that's why I think Sheepy's been taking off so much, because there's so many cool things working all at the same time that sometimes don't even make sense. Like a little sheep, a badass Lambo, big tough dude, cool in person. Like, there's so many different things that happen. And then people, when they first see it, they're just like, what is this? And they get so captivated. And then when they start hearing a story or seeing like how hard we work at everything, they're like, oh, this is really cool. Like, I want to be a part of this movement. Cause I think that's what it really all is. Like, you just latch on to things where you're like, I want to be part of that. I remember when they only had 5,000 followers. Right. I remember when they thought about giving a car away. Now they're like 10 cars away or whatever, like the future of this is pretty cool.
Yeah, because we have such a reach in different departments, right? Like you said, we are normal dudes. I mean, just this weekend I was in Utah and Cedar City, population of 30,000 people, right in the middle of nowhere.
That's like one basketball game in LA.
yeah, exactly. I'm walking out of the gas station. This dude literally stops like, yo, bro, big fan. Can I get a picture with you? I'm like, yeah. And to me, it's like, no big deal. But then it's like, it is a big deal.
Well, it goes both ways.
Right.
Because for you, that moment is probably 1 of 10, maybe that week, right?
Yeah.
But for that person, that's 1 of 1. And
right.
Especially because he probably never imagined. And that must be the most surreal feeling, because I personally haven't had it in that direction. Like anytime I've met a celebrity or someone that's like done something cool, I kind of expect it because I'm like in LA or I'm doing something that's like, oh, I bet you these basketball players might be here. Oh, look, there's XYZ. But out here, crossing your path at a Jack in the Box in Murrieta, someone's like, "What the heck? Like you're really here?" Like they probably can't even fathom that.
Yeah, it's cool, and it humbles me, and it really does make me appreciate what I'm doing, because I try to be transparent of all my posts and in my stories, where I'm human. I suffer with anxiety. I suffer with, I wouldn't say depression, but I suffer from, just stress, right? Mm-hmm. And a lot of obstacles in my life. I think the last 60 months have been another challenge that God's put in front of me. It's like, okay, here's a big challenge. You're going to get through it, right? And it's not poor me or this person, that. It's like, what am I learning from this experience so it doesn't happen again? So when I do meet these people that are very influenced by what I do and what we do as a brand, it makes me feel good that, you know what, regardless of all the negative bumps that I hit on a daily, I'm going down the right road, and it makes me feel good. You know what I'm saying? Versus like always just dealing with losses and negatives every day. Like I wake up, I hate to say this, and it's not that I'm not appreciative. I don't look at the glass half full. I look at it half empty when I wake up. Like, damn, I got to deal with this. Damn, I got to put up this fire. Like I daily say, I'm a firefighter. I wake up to just put out fires.
Right.
But
I think you're built that way. People, entrepreneurs, people that start businesses, all that stuff. I think the opposite is easy. Quitting is easy. Anybody any day can just be like, you know what, I've had it. I'm just going to go and just get a regular job. So that's probably what at the same time motivates you. Like, you know, if things were super easy and anyone could do it, then everyone would. But this is something that kind of separates you from someone else, especially other brands, other shops, other people doing anything, especially with like how crazy and uncertain times are. We don't know there's going to be another pandemic in 6 months, shut us all down again, you know? But we don't live that way.
We
like,
don't.
We continue. We don't, like you said, there's a fire, we put it out. You're not even paying attention. Like Nick said that, one of our welders here was like, man, I come here, I don't care if the building's on fire. You tell me where to work, I'm going to work there. I'm going to figure it out.
And that's with him. You know, Nick's a good example. He is. I talked about with him that night. I was like, is it that we're just used to like constant hostility, or is it that we could just juggle issues? He's like, well, I think a little bit of both, because in the race industry, the car industry, there's always something. Our line of business, there's no way you're gonna walk into any facility and be like, it's a perfect day. This is your 5 things. This is your 3 things. And at 5 o'clock, those 5 things and those 3 things. Absolutely not.
But I think that's why we all click. You know, you, my brother, myself, anybody here, you have to be tolerant to risk. You can't not do the things that we've done in our lives without being like, oh, that might not work, you know?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. But sometimes I think that we get too comfortable with the risk. Okay. Now I'm going to speak for myself.
Yeah.
My girlfriend Erin always tells me, she goes, "You're very," what's that word I'm looking for? It'll come back to me. But I'm comfortable taking risk. It's all I know.
Right.
You know, like looking back, right? I literally spent my entire savings account to buy a Lamborghini Huracan because I wanted to twin turbo them. Like, who spends $110,000? I left myself with $7,000. I got a business I got to run. I got a mortgage. I got kids. I got a car payment. But I'm like, whatever. I'm going to make the money back in 2 weeks. Right?
The bigger the risk, the bigger the reward.
Right.
That's just how we are.
But right now, where I'm at in life, I'm trying, like, you know, I just turned 36. And I sat there, I'm like, instead of being like, how much more could I do? My thought was, how could I like slow down and enjoy, but still grow, right? So one of the biggest things is how big the staff has been here now, right? You know, Sheepey Brand was created. You know, any selfish, I'm going to refer to them as an owner, would be like, well, it's all mine, you work for me. Now I'm a leader. I'm like, well, I want this shit to be big. You own some of it. And I go, in the past 30, 60 days, I never ask you for anything. Like you show me what we're designing, what we're doing. I feel cool. I'm excited about it. And I focus on what I do best. Right. Versus me trying to do everything best and not succeed at it. Right. So it's my biggest issue is I'm too comfortable with risk. And I've realized that. So now I'm toning it down. Like, don't take so many risks. Right. I don't need to anymore.
Right.
Like, you know, I've taken the biggest risk to create this brand that's just a monster now, where it's like, there's no need to take risks. You just make educated decisions with the right people that will have a positive outcome.
Right, without a doubt.
Right? Because, yeah, you know, I have taken some big risks. I've also taken some big L's. Huge losses.
But you don't learn without taking them. So.
100%. You got to learn from them. So, you know, it's now I'm in a position where, back to the next thing, is like, you know, I kind of like question this. I'm like, are we too risky? He's like, no, we're not. We're just used to dealing with pressure and stress, and we figure it out.
I think it also just compounds. You know, I think that, you know, 1 year ago you might have taken 5 risks, and then this year you might take 3, but you still took the 5. Some of that carries over, so it's still 8. You know, and then that's 2 years. You don't want to add 10 plus years of doing business. There's going to be things that just kind of like take on time. I have this theory about life where you can only do so many things so many times, right? So the way I look at it is like just drinking alcohol. You can only probably drink 20,000 shots before your liver's like, you're done, you know, like, and I think it's the same thing with like taking these risks. They start adding up, and at a certain point they compound. It's like, oh damn, like now we're really leveraged. And that's why it's good that you caught yourself and you're like, you know what? I'm going to delegate. I'm going to get it to staff. These dudes are going to handle this. We're going to handle this. And then we can take the risky route, or we can take somewhere in the middle. And I think you're getting better at that middle route.
I am. I have, what's that disorder where, micromanager, right? I have to have my hands in everything. This weekend was a good example of me letting go, right? And letting my team do what I pay them for.
Yeah.
And it was hard.
Yeah.
They're like, go on vacation for 2 days. Like, I don't want to
That's
leave.
probably the hardest part for someone, because, you know, we're going to have all sorts of different people listening to our podcast, where some people are fellow business owners. Other people are probably someone that works for someone, maybe down the road wants to work for someone else, but they probably don't even understand what it's like to just give up ownership or just give up the your shop. You're literally giving the keys to your baby to someone that you don't really fully know sometimes. Like, I would say Jason's 6 months into the role that he's at. You know, there's so many new people and pieces here that you're like taking it pretty well, considering like you are giving the keys to your shop to a lot of people.
Yeah, Jason's a good example. You know, I've known Jason almost 20 years.
But it does change when you know someone and then when you start working with them, right?
100%. The thing with Jason, and Jason's very good at being a manager. Nothing falls through the cracks. But why Nick and our conversation started about we're too comfortable with taking risks or being, you know, stressed out or dealing with these big fires. Jason's like not really used to it. So when not that he blows them out of proportion, but he'll enlighten them often, it makes us question like, shit, Nick, is that good? And he's like, well, I don't think he's really used to this stress. But we also understand where he's coming from. So we have to go both ways. Like, we get you, but also kind of get us and get the line of work that we do.
But 4 eyes always see better than 2.
100%.
And sometimes, like, the way you looked at it for so long was the only way you've thought about it, because when your back's up against the wall, you're like, oh, I got to react this way. But then now it's like, oh, wait, I have a homie. Hey, pass the torch.
Nah, it feels good. It definitely feels good. I've been a lot more calmer the past couple weeks, considering the crazy stuff in my personal life.
Right. I'm privy to a lot of it. Obviously, this is just where we can talk about it, and you bring it up or not, you know. But
no, I don't mind. Like, you know, one thing about the podcast is I don't want people to think we just talk about the good or talk about what benefits us or what people want to hear. And in the reality, probably half the people watching here, I think everyone deals with everyday problems. You know, I mean, learn from us. This the entire point of this is to learn from us. You know. Tell us, you know, or we learn from you guys.
Yeah.
You don't know, but the moral of the story is it doesn't matter how good business we are at certain things. Just as humans need leadership and guidance too, right?
Yeah.
Just because we can get up and financially afford our lives doesn't make us always right.
yeah, and I mean, it's one of those things too. Like, all of this is really cool, but the most important part is if you're happy with it, if you're satisfied, you know. And a lot of people they probably, at least in their head, see all the success and probably think numbers. You know, a lot of times those numbers come in, but it's actually a bigger burden. You have a bigger responsibility, you have a bigger risk. You know, going from 0 customers to our first order, we had maybe like 300 or 400 customers. Now we're dealing with 4,000 or 5,000 customers. So we initially were, and this is from 0 to 12 months, you know, really quickly, to where you were concerned at first. You're like, damn, we're getting so many emails, so much stuff. It's like, well, we didn't have all these customers before. Of course they want to talk to us. They don't know us. Now we're in our second giveaway. We're doing different things. People are like, oh yeah, it takes them a little while because there's 2, 3, 1,000 orders in one day sometimes. So that scalability, but going back, the reason that we're all doing this is because we find it fun. There's a challenge and it makes us happy. You know, like when you're going down the street and you see the Sheepy sticker, you see someone wearing the hoodie, it brings you that joy. Like, damn, like we designed every aspect of that. We shipped it from our warehouse. You got it. Now you're repping us and you're repping this movement, going back to what I was saying earlier, where people like that. They want to be part of it. Because otherwise, what are all these other companies doing? You know, like, what is Nike really doing? Like, it's cool. Like, yeah, you saw LeBron wearing that stuff, but it's like, I don't know who makes it. Somebody else somewhere else. You know, like, it doesn't give you that cool personal touch.
The personal touch is dope. I'm in multiple group chats on WhatsApp, right, with different people. One of them is a gentleman named John Shepard, owns Shep Transmission, Tony Powell from 2-1 Race. And a couple weeks ago, Memorial Day holiday, they just came by. He was on some little island, freaking middle of nowhere, right? Like, legit middle of nowhere. And there's a guy at the bar rocking our hoodie. He takes a picture. He's like, what a small world. You know, I was like, dude. And, you know, constantly, you know, all of you guys are always sending images. People all over the
Super
world
cool,
rocking
yeah.
our stuff, you know?
It's funny because a long time ago, I started helping to run the Instagram. So I help with all different aspects of the brand. And one time there's a kid posted a picture of a hoodie and I reposted it. And Johnny's like, oh, no, don't repost that. Alex doesn't like when you repost them. And I was like, why? I think it's really cool. And he was like, oh, if it looks bad, you know, obviously. But it was one of those things where, you know, like, I'm very happy because I literally make the product. So I see it. I didn't want to step on people's toes, but I was like, we got to rep these kids, man. Like, they rep us. Why not give them a little 10 seconds of fame on our story, you know?
I'm all for it. But I think what Johnny meant then is I have a certain view with how I like
the aesthetics,
media, of our Instagram. And now we're you know, the initial aesthetics of Instagram was automotive based.
Right.
So now we got Sheepey Brand that was a first t-shirts and hats. Now we got skateboarders. We have BMX dudes. Like, I don't even know who half these kids are, but they're pros and they're cool people. Right? I'm like, all right, whatever. And it's cool to sit back and like, we've created a brand. We got skaters rocking our boards. We got.
Well, you said it best the other day. You were like, it's not just a brand, it's a lifestyle. Because now it's like different people doing cool things.
It's a lifestyle. We're not selling you a T-shirt. We're selling you to be a part of an
We got hot
experience.
models. We got a bunch of people.
All of them. Yeah, everything.
Yeah, we've been doing a lot. It's crazy to think it's been. I mean, I would say the first like 2-3 months were like a little slower pace, but the last 9 months have been crazy. Like moving here, doing this whole podcast, the fact that we're sitting here right this very moment doing all the stuff where like a year ago, I don't even think we thought about any of this, you know?
The scale has been legit up.
Yeah.
And we're doing a podcast out of something that was created selling Honda turbo manifolds.
Correct.
Right?
Well, just the fact that you woke up one day and you're like, you know what? I'm going to wrench, you know?
Let's talk about that. I worked for Webcam Shows for very many years. Still home to me. Elsa, which I was married to, she is a big supporter and backbone to a lot of what I've done. And I built these Hondas. We'd go to Honda shows. There'd be guys like Frank from Downstar. I know you know Frank.
Yeah, I did a podcast with him.
Ryan from Rywire. All these guys that are building these Hondas and essentially almost creating their own little brand and a form of income. Okay. Ryan was doing wiring. Frank was like, I'm going to sell bolts. And I remember I was sitting in my living room, dude. I'll never forget. I'm like, Frank selling bolts, like, and I kind of like dissed him. It was on NWP for life. I'm like, whatever, bro. I know exactly where you get all that stuff. I kind of like dissed him.
Right.
And that was me hating, like, yo, this dude found a hustle, and I'm sitting here like holding dick. You feel me? So then Elsa goes, you have such a big following. Your name is bigger. No disrespect towards Frank or the Ryans. Why don't you do something to make a couple extra bucks?
Yeah.
I'm like, well, what am I gonna do?
How old are you?
This was in 2010. So 11
that?
years ago?
11, yeah.
36, 26, 27. I'm like, well, what am I going to do? And at the time, Charlie was like my best friend, and he ran this little hustle out of Arizona. He built my turbo manifold for my Integro. I needed a turbo manifold in a hurry. I messaged him. He's like, dude, I can make one in a week. He drove it out. We kind of clicked it off, just hung out all weekend. He went back home to work, and he would come back on the weekend to like work on my race car with me. He's like super a part of my race car. I'm like, well, maybe Charlie could just make turbo manifolds and we put my name on it.
Yeah.
So I proposed it to him, and he was like, at the time, he kind of hit a couple, he just had too much going on where like him and the girlfriend at the time where he was trying to make turbo manifolds and then still deal with clients, and he couldn't do it all, right? I mean, you and I both know you can't do everything. And so I was like, yo, how about you just weld? You sit your ass down and you weld and I'll make the money. Okay. And that's how it started, right? My little side hustle. But it was her. I was sitting on the couch. We were watching Seinfeld. I remember like it was yesterday. She's like, yo, why don't you do something too? And that's how it started. Out of my garage, just like, we didn't have money. I remember we used to have to drive to go pick up material in Anaheim, you know. And
doesn't it feel different when you're looking back now where, you know, you take that first risk and you're like, damn, is this going to be a side hustle? Will I forever have a job and then do this? Or can I really one day turn it? And then what was it like the day you realized like, oh, I can actually make income from this and I don't have to do another job?
It really didn't happen. We started making money quick, right? Because at that time we released a front wheel drive car. We went really fast. We're the center of attention, so we were backed
And
up.
when you're talking about a following, was this like on Facebook at the time, Instagram?
Facebook, forums, Facebook, and at the time magazines were out, so I already had like 7 cover cars I've built, so we had a big following. And so it was mostly Facebook, right, in the Honda community. Instagram had just started. It really wasn't popping. And I had a good job. Benefits, right? The parents were like...
Was this at Web or is this...
Web,
yeah.
The owners were like parents of mine, so I kind of did whatever I wanted to. And, you know, I wanted to make an extra $200. It's like, yo, if I can make an extra... That's $800. That's a car payment.
Do you think that's where it comes from? Do you think that if you work for a successful company, at a certain point, you're like, I can see what it takes, and then you think you can do it too? Versus if you're at kind of like a dead-end job, you have no one like similar or like-minded or no one pushing you, and maybe you don't really take that risk because you can't see it?
Yes and no. Let's talk about the yeses. Any successful business, if you're smart enough, you could figure out how it works and essentially mimic the same strategy.
Right.
And the no is if you're content with working at this place, content waking up, clocking in at 8, leaving at 5, and doing what you do, cool. The entrepreneur mentality, I feel, turns on people at different times. Mine turned on about 27, 28. That's kind of late.
Yeah.
You know? But I realized that this at Web, it ran for 50 years, and they had a program that worked.
Right.
Okay.
Have you ever heard of Roger Bannister?
No.
Okay. So Roger Bannister was the first guy to ever run a mile under 4 minutes. So before that, people were running the mile at 4 minutes and like 20 seconds, 4 minutes, 10 seconds. One guy got really close, 4 minutes, 5 seconds. This record was for years, like 10 years, let's say, in the Olympics. This guy, Roger Bannister, trained his ass off until he finally broke the 4 minute mile. Once he did that, like days later, 4 or 5 other people did it. Sometimes we really need to see someone do something before you can actually do it. So that's called the Bannister effect. When you kind of have to see the success in order to be like, you know what, I can do it. And that's why my theory about like sometimes like you kind of have to be around other people like it. Like, of course, if you're just a natural entrepreneur and you have an idea at the beginning, you don't really need anybody. But I think, and maybe like you said, that awakening sometimes happens when you're like, oh, I see what he's doing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And the owners don't sit there and talk about what, they never talked about is how they made it. I would walk upstairs and ask questions. And
that's the biggest trait of a billionaire. Questions. Every billionaire, that's like the one thing that they all have. They ask every question that they can think of because they want to know how everything works to see if they can kind of like figure something out from that.
That's crazy. So I was making great money out of my garage.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, at one point I was working 5 hours at Web where my paychecks were like $40 and Elsa would just like throw them on the side, right?
Yeah.
Because I was making so much money out of my garage. I made money. I bought my first GTR in 2012. I was living the high life. Like
GTR at that time still was like $100,000, no?
Yeah. So I remember the day I was driving it home. Like, I can't believe I just bought this. Like, crazy.
I know that feeling.
It's a cool feeling, right? Yeah. And it didn't hit me until right before. I would have kept working at Web, running my side hustle out of the garage if Elsa never would have had a kid.
Is that Kobe?
Kobe, yeah. I ran the shop out of the house. We have a 5-bedroom house, 3-car garage, 2 living room, big house.
What city?
Paris.
Okay.
So one of the living rooms, I turned it into like the shipping department.
You have
the spare bedroom was the stock inventory room.
Customer service.
And the garage was just full fab. Right? And the house downstairs was just always full of metal because it's a dirty thing. It's metal. And the kitchen was my office. I had my laptop, everything, right? And that was hustle. It was fun. It was, dude, I look back at those. I hate to say this, probably some of the most fun times I had in my life.
But it's also like that because anytime you think back, you think nostalgically. And when you think in the moment, you think practically. So it's like you think right now and you're like, damn, this is super fun too. But then I got bills, I got all this other stuff. But then later on down the road, you'll look back at this point. You're like, damn, remember that time we did our first podcast and this? You know what I mean?
It's all a scaling, right? Because I guess I'm looking at like how expensive my life was then. I'm like, I wish I had that.
Yeah.
I wish I'd had that over. But now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, damn, that's expensive. I got to come up with that money.
But you probably are also forgetting what you were going through then. You're probably eating ramen. There was like, as you scale up, your whole life changes,
everything.
So everything becomes a little more expensive. And even if it's only $5 or $10, like back in the day, you might have drank one type of water. Now you're like, oh, I only do like, give me the artesian water. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So then Elsa's like, when Cobain is born, you can't have this down here. How are you gonna have a family? And I'm like, yeah. Always procrastinating, right? It's kind of what I do best. I hate to admit it, but that's my downfall, right? So I'm like, we can't afford to have a shop, right? So we went looking around and found the shop literally 2 miles up the road. They wanted $950 a month. It was 1,100 square feet. We called on it. We told them what we were doing, and we got it. And I was scared. I'm like, damn, now I got to come up with an extra $1,200 a month.
Pretty cheap, though, if you think about it.
Yeah. But at the time, I'm like, I think I had like $8,000 to $10,000 saved. I'm like, how am I going to do this?
Yeah.
But
and they didn't ask you for a crazy deposit, did they?
No, first and last month's rent. They're cool. And I was forced to step out and actually have a business not ran out of my house because my child was about to be born. Right? And it was a scary move. I'm telling you, man, it was the most scariest move I've ever done. I've had that feeling 3 times.
I know one of them.
When I moved into Paris, when I moved into Marietta, and when I moved into here.
Yeah.
Okay? But then when I get up and running, it's like, all right, we're good. What are we doing next, right?
Yeah.
So, like, I know the feeling that I felt when we first moved in here. I know the feeling of, the scaling is huge. We have 17 people on payroll. That's 17 families we have to feed, okay? Everyone's on the books. Everyone's got 401ks. The scaling's so much bigger now where the weight on the shoulders, I can't put it into words sometimes. It's something that I legitimately don't wish upon people. Like, be ready for the entrepreneurial life.
Yeah.
It is not for somebody. I'm gonna go off topic. Dylan Jacobs, okay, CEO and founder of Brewmate. Okay, everyone could Google him. Young entrepreneur. I mean, this guy is super young. He's a real deal. He told me a story. He started his cell phone repair business out of high school, driving a Lambo his junior year of high school, and he sold 20% of his business. It's public records, and last year it was a big deal to put some liquid in his cash, in his pocket. It's his money. And we're in drive-through In-N-Out. He came because we built him a Lambo, and I'm asking him because even though he's younger than me, in a business, I look up to this dude. It's fucking done good for himself. So I said, hey, you know that feeling you get in the stomach, in your stomach when you wake up every morning? Did it go away after you sold 20%? He goes, absolutely not. It's still there. So it does not matter how much we do. It's like that feeling is still there. It does not matter how much money you make sometimes, how cool the Aventador or the Urus or the Teslas are. That feeling is still fucking there every morning. And it's something you just learn to deal with and balance. Because if you don't, you're not meant for this.
Yeah.
I got more gray hair than my dad, bro. Like, than my dad.
Yeah.
And I'm not proud of that. The stress, the past year, I've let my personal health kind of go down the drain. We'll talk about it. We'll be, I'll be like, I like to go to and hang out and have some drinks with my friends, and it's not, I'm 36 now. Like, my body doesn't take it the same when I was 21. You know what I'm saying? So, it's the entrepreneur life is a very difficult thing to do, in many aspects, from personal life, customers, your colleagues, your partners. You got to make sure that I'm not always going to keep all four of them at 100%, but I at least try to keep them about 70 to 180.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And that's a lot of weight to carry. So when people say it must be nicer, that's cool. It's like, let me tell you the reality of things, right? The screwed up part is I can't go back. I can't quit.
You can take a different path, but it won't be the same. Yeah.
You just can't. The word can't does not exist in what we're doing.
Right. I look at it sometimes like when someone walks down by you or whatever, like, hey man, how's it going? Does anyone ever really mean like what they say? Like, does anyone really care? Like, hey, how is it really going? You're like, let me tell you how my day is going today, bro. And you start laying it out now. Like, today we got this and that and that. No one really cares about that. They want to just know, like, it's good, bro. And you just keep walking, And that's sometimes how I look at business, where people are like, it must be nice to do this. And it's like, really? You think okay, well, let's break it down. I spend this much, we make this much. And that's a great year. That's pre-taxes. That's this, that's that. And then what you're left with, sometimes it's like, is it really worth it? But that's why it goes back to, like, as long as you're doing something that brings you happiness, the money will come, not exactly what you think, because the bottom line isn't what anyone ever imagines. Like, unless you're Google or, Bezos with Amazon that figure out how to, like, send profits everywhere else, they don't really collect that number. And even that is conflated a lot. Like, do you remember there was a time when they were like, Kylie became a billionaire by the time of whatever.
Yeah.
That's all lies. She's not really worth that much. She's probably really worth like 300 million, but they calculate everything that she has a finger on that touches this, that TV show, and then they add it all up and they're like, oh yeah, it's about $1 billion.
But when actual $1 billion liquid.
Exactly.
Right.
So they'll say that, and then she'll like feel herself, but in reality, it's like, you don't have that liquid. No one does, like, except maybe even Elon and those guys, like, there's no way they have 10 billion liquid. It's all in different things, but when you say it and when you put this angle on it, people are like, oh. And then when you really remove that, you're like, why are they even doing that? It's for Forbes. It's for this. It's for that. It's all businesses that are trying to latch on to you. Like you said early on, the magazines. They're promoting you, not really because they're celebrating you, because they're like, well, this guy will advertise. This guy likes this guy. He's cool. The Hispanic community is going to like this. They'll buy our magazine. At the end of the day, they're really just trying to sell magazines. So, like, it's all like funny how, like, when you look at it from one scope, it's like, looks like this. And then you and I know what we're going through. But on the outside, it looks like that.
Yeah, and it's like hard because I don't want to be rude to people, right? So I do normal shit like everybody else. Go to the grocery store. I was in Paris. I go to my favorite meat market in Paris, and people stop me outside to take a picture of their Vic Vans. I'm like, you don't want to be me. I'm like, I'm kind of human too. Like, it's not what you think it is. And I try to tell people all the time. It's like
But that's why probably they're down with you, because they're like, they know it's not really like that. They know that it's like harder than it seems. And even I'll never forget one time I was on this road trip with DC Shoes, and like Rob Dyrdek was there, the pro skateboarder. So anywhere we went, wherever our bus was, people would come and just stand in line just to get an autograph or whatever, which is cool. But when sometimes you're just going and you're having a rough day, like I remember, I think I fell on my face and I'm trying to eat my lunch and this kid was sitting next to me the whole time. Like, bro, can I get an autograph? And I was like, yeah, just let me finish. He's like, okay, cool. He never left. He just stood right there, waited like for 30, 40 minutes while me and my friends like messed around and finally went outside and took a photo. And I was like, damn, man, like you don't even respect someone's humanity. Like just let me eat in peace. And when I go outside, you'll meet me there. But it was just like a little learning lesson for me. Like some people just don't care.
No, and they don't know.
Yeah.
They don't know. They see this picture.
I mean, they have to know it's awkward to just stand there while you're eating. I'm like dribbling food on my face.
Some people, yeah, you're right. Some people just don't get it. They're persistent with what they want, right? I've had something like that, you know, and I was at the bar with Aaron a couple weeks ago, and this guy comes up and literally like comes behind me, and he's like, "Bro," and I'm like, "What? He's like, "No, I don't mean no disrespect." I mean, like, and I'm like, "Oh, it's cool, man, it's cool." And like, she made a face, and like, I quickly noticed the vibe. I'm like, "No, it's all cool." He's like, "Oh, I saw you from across, and I had to say what's up." And we just got back from when I went cruising the 6'4", we just got back. I was tired. We just wanted to kind of just hang out and talk, you know. But they don't mean harm, you know. They're just.
Do you sometimes when you see someone that recognizes, can you tell?
All the time.
Yeah.
All the time. I was at Mesquite. I was at. We drove up this weekend to Utah to Bryan Head. We drove all night, Friday night. We rotated, and we went straight there because her parents are going to show up. Sunday's like, yeah, we'll just roll into town. Saturday morning, we'll get a hotel. We'll wander the town. I had this envision that it's this resort, cool like city in the mountains that has bars everywhere and cool spots. And then we'll roll in, and there's like a pizza spot, right? And like these buildings and like timeshares. I'm like, yeah, this ain't gonna work.
Yeah.
So I was like, remember about like 2 hours ago, we drove through this town. So I went right back down to Mesquite. We stayed at Casablanca, this casino. And I had a good time. Bunch of old dudes, you know, just gambling, playing. And we go to get in line to have dinner. As I'm walking, you just like feel it. It's weird. You feel it. You just feel this presence. This guy's like staring at me, and I look up. And I like look up, and I look down, and I like just locked eyes. Like, Alex from Sheepey. I'm like, yeah, what's up, man? And he's like, big fan. Then everyone in the line just fucking stares. I'm like, ugh.
It's cool though.
It's cool, but yeah, you always know. You just
Speaking
know.
of that celebrity, so what was it like first hanging out with Johnny? Because my brother is a very polarizing human, and like, you want to know a funny story? Both he and I, like when we were like in our 20s, so I became this pro bike rider. Like, started getting like I got on the Ellen show. I did all these random things for BMX, right? But anywhere we would go, people would come up to my brother and be like, damn, you must do something crazy and you must be famous and loaded. Yeah. He's like, yeah, you know,
let's
like,
drop a picture of Johnny here.
Yeah,
from like maybe 4 years ago when he had his long hair.
Long hair, yeah, that's the best one on his motorcycle.
You know, so Johnny was in an accident, right? He came to drop off a motor.
Actually, he was planned.
You know, he rolled through the shop one day, you know, and then he's all, you know, super LA. You look at this fool, just Google, Urban Google, LA 30-year-old male. It's a picture of fucking Johnny.
Yeah.
All right, so this guy comes in, kind of quiet, and he's like, yeah, could you do this? Like, yeah, I could do it. It's all right. Shows up the next day, just nonchalant. You need tools? No. Got the little cart. All right. Dude does his job. And then one thing led to another, jokes, and then he came to work for Sheepy, and then we hung out. I'm like, yo, let's go out. No. Back up. He came to work with January 1st. And then there was SEMA. I was like, yo, he's like, yeah, I go to SEMA every year. I was like, oh, we're going to be there too. Let's just link up with us. So this fool goes to SEMA with his friends, but doesn't really have a room. He just hangs out with his friends. And this SEMA, I had to catch a flight to back east. So I had this room for the like 3 days that nobody was going to use. So he rolls in. He's like, where you at? He comes and meets us. And he's got these tight ass pants. I mean, like, I don't know how this fool's balls breathe, right?
Yeah.
He's got these Vans that are high tops. He's got this super tight shirt, this leather vest.
Fishnet, probably.
He didn't have a fishnet on. And then he had his freaking hair all wild, and these big old crazy, like, Kurt Cobain style glasses that he rocked in the 90s when he hung out with his ex-wife, right? Was wife before he died. And I'm like, what the hell's wrong with this fool looking like this? So we're walking through SEMA, right? And everyone's just staring at this fool, right? I'm like, man. Then we went out. And that was it. Then I got to know Johnny.
Yeah.
Yeah, I started drinking with Johnny. And Johnny, if you walk into a restaurant, you're gonna know Johnny's there.
Yeah.
If he's there.
He tells the loudest story with the most detail and just so vulgar. He's like, I'm balls deep in this broad.
Well, he gets louder and redder the more he drinks. Yeah. So, and everyone always wondered, like, you know, like they always thought he was something or someone, right? And dude, we were at an airport one day, and they're like, what band are you part of? And he was like, oh, I'm a part of this band. I'm on tour. And they
believe
these
it.
chicks fall for it, dude. This guy's wild.
Yeah.
Man. He's kind of toned down. Last time I saw him, he looks like, you know, you ever seen that meme of the bulldog sitting on the stool?
Stoop. Yeah.
It's like, that's like Johnny. I was like, oh, I gotta tame myself.
I mean, when he comes out here, he's like on. But what's crazy to me is like, you know, he always had an Instagram, and it was like always whatever. He never really cared about stuff. And then one day I started seeing like 5,000 followers, 7,000 followers. I was like, what's this fool up to? And then he's like, we've been doing the YouTube, you know? And he's like, I'm coming for your plaque. Because I got a plaque because I got 100,000 subscribers. And he's like, I'm coming for that plaque for you, you know? And I was like, oh, what are they up to? And then I watched one of the Sheepy episodes that Alonzo put together. I was like, oh, this makes perfect sense. Finally, he's getting this platform that he's always wanted, you know?
Yeah, we started doing the vlogs. You know, I mean, we weren't really vloggers, of course. We're not going to lie. Damon and Dave did inspire a lot of the channel. And people wanted to know more about us. So we started vlogging. And me and Johnny have always had this dynamic, even till this day. You put us together, like me being CEO of companies and building, it goes out the fucking window when I'm with him, and we just fuck around, right? Yeah. We just have a good time. And we've always had this dynamic. So you throw that into there, and then we got to be professional from 8 to 5. But we still have that dynamic. It kind of clicked off. So we made these videos, and they just blew up, right?
Yep. They're still the #1 watched on the channel.
Yeah. I mean, we had a dope dynamic, you know, and it's cool, you know. I mean, we still talk damn near every day, you know, but it's, you know, who he works for is a little weird. So.
And we'll probably get to that at some point down the road. There's a lot of things that I'm sure in the comments you guys will like lead us to these things, but any topic you guys have or any questions you guys have, feel free. Like, we do check everything. We can't respond to everything because we do have a lot on our plate, but we definitely see it and it you know, resonates with us. And at a certain point, I'm sure we'll address things as far as we can. We don't want to put people like my brother in compromised positions, but
absolutely.
You know, he is a character. I've obviously known him my whole life, and it's cool now that he's like found success in, you know, what he does. Because for a long time it was kind of like your story where he can make good money out of the garage, but that transition from out of the garage into a shop into like a more professional environment has always been hard for him. And also his mind is just wired differently. Like a lot of the things that happen here nowadays, I hear and I feel like he's around because they're things that I remember him always telling me, like, it's fine, it'll buff out, you're good,
well,
don't even worry about it.
If it's not burned down, it's fixable.
Right.
That's his thing. If the car's not on fire, burned down, we're gonna fix it. And that was always been my hardest thing to understand and comprehend. But the guy has a very natural talent of being a phenomenal tech, right? And troubleshooting. We all have our things, you know. We call it the Johnny effect, right? Like, it's fine. When you hear Johnny say it's fine, it's really not fine.
But I mean, it's fine for him. Yeah. He'll figure it out, and he'll figure out how to tell someone, like, hey man, so about that weekend you were gonna have in, you know, Sheboygan, it's not gonna go down that way, you know.
Oh man, that guy's good.
Well, just imagine being his brother. Anytime he had to deliver something to me, like, I already know all his tells, you know, like when he's not gonna tell me the truth or something. So he would like mess up my car or something. He'd be like, you don't need it this weekend, right? I was like, what do you mean I don't need my car this weekend? A little thing. I was like, little thing? It'll be fine. I come look at it, the whole quarter panel's missing. I was like, oh my God, what am I gonna do?
But he told you the coolest stories why the quarter panel was
Listen, oh my God. My friend Caleb was recently with him in Florida, and he was already reminiscing of some stories.
This past
He's
weekend?
Like, yeah.
Oh, he called me. I got a call too.
Yeah.
Renee.
Yeah. So he was just telling me how, like, Caleb and him had work the next day at 7 in the morning, and they're at a bar in Hollywood like 2:30, 3 in the morning, and they go back to this chick's house. Caleb falls asleep in the car, and he wakes up at like 6:45, and Johnny's on this balcony trying to figure out how to get down because the husband had showed up. And he said that he's got a bottle of Jack in his shirt, and he's like looking around the balcony, and he jumps off the balcony, lands, busts his ankle, and looks around, but no one's watching him. And he looks, and he just lifts up the bottle of Jack, like, oh, it's still good. Gets in the car. They drive straight to Long Beach from Hollywood, and it's like a 30, 40-minute drive, straight to work. They both had work. Yeah. That was him. That's still him.
It's still him. I mean, it was when he was with me. It was many times this fool would come driving on in straight from party, but it doesn't affect him. That dude just works, you know. And you could tell that.
you know what's funny? The other day he told me, he's like, man, you think I'm on the spectrum? I was like, what are you talking about? He's like, ever since like Elon came out that he has like a slight autism, you know, like Asperger's, Johnny's like, I think I got Asperger's. I was like, no, fool, you're just a procrastinator and you party a lot. So you wait till the very end. And then like when there's like an hour left, yeah, you got to put all your juice into it and focus.
Fucking guy. Yeah, I was driving on the freeway and I get a FaceTime call and I have him under Johnny LA. And I answer and I'm with my girl and he goes, hey, what's up, fool? Renee!
You can't even tell that story.
I can't tell the story. But if I could, I'd tell you what, it'd be a story you'd remember.
Maybe we could do it one day with like other characters and we'll have a little cartoon drawn up of it. Yeah.
We'll have him tell the story.
Yeah.
Oh, man, this guy, I'm telling you. But yeah, no, so the you know, we talked, you know, kind of spoke about a lot of little things here, but essentially this podcast is to keep it real and keep it 100. Talk is cheap. I mean, let's keep it 100. Have a good time. Be honest. Be educational at the same time. Keep it PG-13.
I don't know about PG-13. Like, I noticed that the better podcasts are the ones that keep it more real. Like, obviously, we're not going to just throw curse words around just because. But if there's a little F-bomb that drops every once in a while, it's cool. I mean, kids nowadays, it's the internet. You know, like, you kind of have to be privy to it.
It is, but we also don't want to misguide, you know, the young followers of things being cool.
Yeah, but if they come here one day to get their car worked on once, you know, that's like a big aspiration to get your Lambo done here. At some point, they're going to see someone drop a wrench and you're like, throwing across,
we don't want 15-year-olds to know Johnny's stories. That's kind of a bad influence.
Well, that's a different thing. Yeah, Johnny's stories we'll have to curtail him a little bit because he is a wild guy. I mean, you're a wild guy yourself. Like, I'm glad you guys have both have calmed down a lot.
Yeah. You know what it took? It took women to calm us down, right? Because
yeah, I guess. I mean, it took Johnny. What? He's 32 now, and he's just now getting engaged. So she's been wrangling him for a long time.
Yeah, my wild years are probably the past 2 years that I've calmed down now, settled down, just focused on relationship and be a family guy, you know. But yeah, I've had my fun. I've had made a lot of bad choices, but I guess.
What year was probably the most fun? Like a good mix of success, but also just like you did some wild stuff. Was that with the years with Johnny, maybe, or
last year?
Last year. Well, that was after Johnny then.
Yeah.
Okay.
I started having fun on my own. Like I figured out how to like just disappear, just be me.
I remember you used to tell me, you're like, hey man, I'm going to go. And then you would call me. You're like, I'm at some hotel. Some guy right now just punched me in the head. I was like, what the hell, Alex?
Hey, do you remember that one time I FaceTimed you? I was like, check this out. There's a freaking, what was it?
The girl on the swing?
It was like a rope.
So you FaceTime me. And it's always funny because, like, I think you're always imagining I'm like this crazy LA guy, and you're probably like FaceTiming me while I'm in the same situation. Meanwhile, I'm on my computer, like working on something. Working. Yeah. And you'll FaceTime me, and you're like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm just working." You're like, "Oh, check this out." And you turn the camera on, and this girl, first off, gigantic cans, is trying to figure out how to get them back into her top. And I was like, "What is this?"
She had huge tits.
So then. She's around this rope doing some sort of pirouette and she flips. And when she flips, both of them dump out. And she's like in a tourniquet and just stuck upside down spinning. And you're laughing just like that. And I was like, what are you doing? He's like, there's some fun, brother. And you just hang up. That was it. But what you didn't know is I face recorded it. So I have the whole video.
My God.
So I'm going to have to leak that one day.
Bro, I walked in that house. I'm like, nice little house, right? And then she's like, oh, I bought the Captain and Coke. Do you like it? And I look in the living room. I'm like, what is that? She's like, I'll show you later. Yeah, so
see, one day I'm gonna get a FaceTime. You're gonna be hung up on one of those. You'll be like, they got me.
I'm good now. Now, last year I unfortunately, my girlfriend, I messed up. Right, I was trying to do things that was just not acceptable, not cool, and it left me alone. And at the time, I was, you know what? I'm gonna learn myself. If there's things that I really need to get out of my system or things that I need to learn, like this is my time. So Monday through Friday, I show up to work, and Fridays, I just disappeared. You know,
you really did.
Yeah,
I want to hear from you until you would break a phone or you would call me like, hey, you want to go to Cabo? Or I forgot what you asked me one time, like somewhere in San Diego. You're like, I got this cool little cabana here. You want to come? And I was like, I don't want to drive 2 hours. Coronado. Drive 2 hours, get wasted, then drive back.
Yeah, but I started doing things like that, you know, then going to Mexico for like a week, and I had a lot of fun.
You were trying to get me to go vlog in Mexico one time, and I was a little sketched out. Not by you, but it was just like the situation was like, all right, there's going to be some guys with guns are going to like take us around. And I was like, I don't think I'm going to Mexico.
Yeah, I got to have bodyguards when you go to Mexico, but it's cool. It's for your safety, right?
And when you came back, you had a Rolex. I was like, what is this? You're like, You came. You remember you got dinner with me and Johnny in L.A. and like you guys were both in like an R8 I think or something. You drove to L.A. and you were like pissed off because Johnny had you waiting forever. And then we got finally some food and some drinks. You were telling me the crazy story about Mexico. You're like, you don't understand. I got this duty free. And I was like, what the heck does that mean? He's like, I don't have to pay taxes. It saved me like 12 grand.
Yeah, and that's because you don't live there. So you fill out these documents and you pay and then they refund you, right? So then I learned the ins and outs about buying things in foreign countries, right? I love Mexico. I mean, you got to go sometime.
I'll go. It's just we didn't know each other that well, and the last trip before that was when we went to Havasu, and I got stung by a stingray, and I got so drunk that I thought I was gonna go to the hospital. Remember that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that was a fun trip, but
that was a good time, huh?
oh, I think I ended up ruining a marriage or something. There's some
no chat about that one.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that's it. I think right now it's just personal development. I definitely got to get back on this health kick, dude. I hate feeling this way.
I've been telling you for a while. You just don't listen to me.
I know.
I even took it upon myself to start training the people around you. Hopefully, like seeing their changes will be like a little inspirational for you. You're like, oh, this feels looking good.
Yeah, I mean, with me, it's like if I want to do something, I just do it, right? Like right now, I'm there. Like I'm 25 pounds overweight where I'm comfortable. Things are going well. Now I can see the tunnel.
What happened to the gym? Remember you called me one day? You're like, we're gonna build a gym. And I was like, all right, let's build a gym then.
Do you see how many cars are back there?
Yeah.
We kind of lost room.
I feel like if we push them, they'll get together. Though.
Yeah. I see the light at the end of the tunnel, right? With brands growing, we're getting caught up on builds. We just got a lot of great things going on. Now I just really want to enjoy the fruits of the labor and really just back off and let the people that I pay to do their job implement their job. And you know, they tell me all the time, stop worrying, stop stressing, go home. But it's the hardest thing, dude. It's like, this is my child. You know, without this, my kids don't go to the fine private schools. Big Head's in fucking Utah, hiking, living the time of his life. Like, that's what I do it for, right? So it's, and you know, on top of that, I'm you know, going through a divorce, right, with my first marriage, and that's not easy because, you know, you have 15, 16 years with someone, and it's kind of like and costumbre, right? In Spanish, you say costumbre.
Mm-hmm.
You have this costumbre, and then you take it away, and it's like, it's just a lot of new growth, a lot of new developments, a lot of things to kind of overcome. But at the end of the day, dude, things work out. They have to work out, right? I mean, for all we know, this is our only life, right? So that's one thing I'm trying to just do better. And again, just I think my biggest issue is I have so much to say, so much in my head at all times. I just don't let it out.
You ever tried writing, like journaling?
I did.
It does help, like, because I'm the same way. I have so much up here, and I think if I just get it out sometimes, I'll just write it down. I think about it less, and it organizes better. And I was like, that's actually a good idea.
I do that with work. So, like, I'll come in every morning, and I sit at my desk, and I have a clipboard. So I have clipboards everywhere. I'm sure you see them. And I have white pieces of paper. And I just start writing everything down the tasks that I'd like to do for the day. A good friend once told me, focus on winning the day. That's our goal. We wake up, we write our tasks, and just win the day. Don't think about tomorrow. Don't think about what you have to do Friday. Win the day, right? So I write all the things, and I try to get those. It's very rare when I cross them all out. If I get 80% of them crossed out, I feel good. I go home, like, I feel good, right?
Right.
But you know, it's yeah, it's crazy.
I mean, like you said, there's just so much compounded that right now it's hard to get a hold of it. But I think one day at a time. If you like tell yourself, all right, starting Friday, I'm gonna do this, this, and that. Be in bed by 11. Be up by a certain time. You'll get more into that routine, and it takes about 21 days to break a bad habit and start a new one.
That's what I'm excited about the podcast too. Is like just let it out. You know, it's no filter. Just keep it real. So
What happened to PG-13?
who says I'm going to talk about bad stuff?
Oh.
All the thoughts and the deals and the struggles that I go through in my head or everyday scenarios is just a scaling from what I do compared to the guy at Walmart tonight. Stress is stress. Our bodies don't know any different. So it's just scaling it and talking about it and trying to overcome it and, you know, become better people, right? So, and hey, maybe somebody that's watching some crazy doctors like, yo, do this and it'll help, you know, but.
Or somebody that's watching this going to hit us up one day. They're going to ask us for a job, and they're going to be helping to run a new division. You never know how this goes.
Let's perfect these before we continue with new divisions.
Oh, yeah. No, but I'm talking down the road. I'm not talking about tomorrow immediately. I mean, we don't even know if 5 people are going to watch this, you know? You don't know.
See. Yeah, but anyways, that was the intro for this podcast. And, yeah, let's let it ride.
That's it. I mean, we did roughly an hour.
Really?
Did it feel like it?
I had a good time. It felt good.
I hope.
I probably got 100 text messages I got to get to and a car I got to go troubleshoot, but I feel good.
I mean, it's 420. I don't know what that means 'cause I don't smoke, but
Really do,
you know.
but that's a wrap. Everybody, thanks for listening and watching. This is our first one, so all constructive criticism is good.
Yep.
Just keep it respectful, but
No, keep it disrespectful. Whatever you gotta say. I don't mind. Like that's one thing about the internet back in the day. Like I was very like, oh my god, they think this or that. It's like if you don't think anything, that's bad.
Yeah.
But if you are like, hey, I don't like the way he says certain things, it's like, well, let me know. I'll maybe work on it. Maybe I'll just tell you go fuck yourself. I don't really know. you know.
Right on. Well, let's
But,
wrap this
yeah.
up, and I'm gonna get back to work. But
Thanks, guys.
that's a
Appreciate
wrap.
it. Thank you, Alex, for taking the time. And yeah, I don't know what day of the week we're gonna probably start trying to do these. Like maybe we'll film them on a Wednesday, drop them every Friday or something. That way we can at least do 4 a month. Sounds attainable.
I think we should do this. Let's start with one a week to build our comfortable and our dynamic, right? Get comfortable with it, and let's read the comments to see what people say, and we'll tackle a handful of questions, and wherever those questions end us up, and we'll let it ride like that, right? And then as time comes up, there'll be topics that I'm gonna think about that I want to talk about with you, or we have a guest, etc. But for most of the time, it's gonna be you and I talking about what's going on in the world, what's going on with Sheepey Brand, Sheepy Race, Sheepy Motors, another division we're starting, just all the business divisions and the struggles and our wins and our losses, right? I as much as people talk about losses, I want to talk about wins. I really want to talk about the losses with people, so they see the reality of like, okay, I see that.
It's true. Well, let's grow, let's build, and catch you next time.
All right, buddy.
All right, guys.